What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. LessAlex here for QuietSpeculation.com, your #1 source for everything Magic the Gathering, finance, and strategy on the internet. I am super stoked because today we are playing a really awesome brew. This is one that's starting to make its way on Magic the Gathering Online and starting to pop up in some paper play as well. Before we get into this one, though, I want to remind you, like the video, comment down below, and of course subscribe if you enjoy content like this, because we come out with new videos every single week. So definitely want to smash that subscribe button. With all that stuff out of the way, just to let you know, there is a companion article over on QuietSpeculation.com that will be in the description below. And if you're coming from reading the article, thanks. Let's get into this deck tech and get into some games. This deck is awesome. Boros Pia Aggro, I guess you could call it. But let's take a look at the deck and talk about the card selections. As I said, this is a deck that has been making its rounds on Magic Online and has already started to top 8 and win some RCQs. If you pay attention over on the Bird app, you can start to see folks are doing pretty well with this deck. Is it an actual legit deck, or is it the new flavor of the month in Pioneer? That's what we're trying to find out. Let's take a look at the card choices. First off, I do want to start with Pia Nalaar, Council of Revival. So this is a 2-mana, 2/3 legendary creature. Thopters you control have haste, and whenever you play a land from exile or cast a spell from exile, create a 1/1 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. So why is this card any good? Why is this card even being played? Well, the stats on it, 2 for 2/3, pretty relevant. 3 toughness, gets around a lot of the removal in the format. Of course, Stomp being the big one. But also, we got Reckless Impulse. This is a card that has been in this format for quite some time. But finally, we got a new one. It's the exact same card, basically. Wrenn's Resolve, and this card says, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of turn. You may play those cards. So this can play lands. This can obviously play anything. So this is card and Reckless Impulse, which does the same thing, both sorceries. But every time you do, whenever you cast this and then say you play a land or play a Monastery Swiftspear or whatever the case, it will trigger Pia. And Pia will make a Thopter. Again, as long as Pia is on the battlefield, those Thopters have haste. So that is something huge that you want to get out of this, right? One thing that is kind of awkward in this deck is Skewer the Critics and Light Up the Stage. Spectacle. You have to have dealt damage. And the only way in this deck really to deal damage other than attacking is casting Play with Fire or Kumano, Faces of Kakkazan. So that is one awkward thing about this deck, is obviously Light Up the Stage is excellent with this because it triggers Pia. But Skewer, I'm a little less sold on, only because you have to trigger Spectacle to get it to cost 1. And that can be difficult sometimes, especially since you want to leverage your Thopters because they have haste. So sometimes you have to attack first, then cast Skewer, and then you make your Thopters, which is fine most of the time. But sometimes when it really comes down to the nitty-gritty and those close games, you really do need that extra 1 or 2 points that, you know, Pia will be generating off of the Skewer or the Light Up the Stage. So with that being said, let's go through the deck list. We have one Den of the Bugbear. The mana base is super clean, right? 6 mountains. Why 6 mountains? Well, we're playing Chained to the Rocks. As a 3 of main and then 1 in the sideboard, this card just gets rid of literally every creature. It gets rid of it for 1 mana as long as you have a mountain, and we're playing 6 mountains and 4 Sacred Foundries, so 10 mountains total. You could probably go up a mountain too, but you do need white to be able to cast your Pia, and then obviously white to cast Chains. So something super relevant there. Kumano, Faces of Kakkazan. Again, this card is great on turn 1. It grows all your prowess creatures on turn 2. This card's sweet. Just very, very good, very, very flexible. And then, of course, it flips into a hasty 2/2. Pretty great great value. Monastery Swiftspear has haste, has prowess, exactly what we want to be doing. There are certain times whenever you have Pia on the board, you can play a Monastery Swiftspear, play a Wrenn's Resolve that triggers the prowess. Then you can play whatever you find, whether it be a land or like a Play with Fire or whatever, triggers prowess again, and of course triggers Pia. The damage that you can go from like having only representing like 2 or 3, maybe 4 damage into representing, 10 damage in a turn, just because you have things like Monastery Swiftspear, Soul-Scar Mage. Obviously doesn't have haste, but still very good. Soul-Scar Mage, great because of its second ability, not its prowess, but if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a creature, it puts -1/-1 counters on it, so you could play with fire something, shriek something, and then that way you can attack past it, or at least get a trade off of it. Soul-Scar Mage, great. Abbot of Keral Keep, this card is fine in this deck. Only a 2 of. Of course, when it enters the battlefield, exile the top card of your library. Until the end of the turn, you may play that. Obviously, that is great synergy with Pia. But this is the one creature, that you tend to cut more often than not. But still, it does a fine job in this deck. Of course, we have Reckless Impulse and Wrenn's Resolve. These are the 2 main engines in this deck, other than, obviously, Pia. Light Up the Stage and Skewer the Critics. Again, Skewer the Critics, in my opinion, is the weakest link in this deck, just because it is kind of awkward, as I said earlier, with triggering the Thopters. But it is what it is for now. Until somebody, I could see something, maybe Stomp in this spot, but yeah, definitely the weakest card in the entire main deck. Moving on to the sideboard, we've got another Chains, again, good against creature decks. We've got Alpine Moon against Lotus. End the Festivities, this is good against Boros Convoke, and any other deck that plays little 1-drops, maybe Mono Red, or maybe the Mirror. Although the Mirror, a lot of our creatures have more toughness than just 1. We've got Rending Volley, of course. This is great against spirits and humans. Then we've got Reidane. Reidane, very good against control. And this is great against Fires of Invention. Showdown of the Skulls, good against any grinding matchup, any mid-range or control deck. And then we get to get jiggy with it with Jegantha in the companion spot. So that is the deck list. Again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and if you haven't yet, go read my article over on Quiet Speculation. And if you want to chop it up with me elsewhere, I'm on Twitter, so go check me out over there at LessAlex, and I stream weekdays around 9 a.m., twitch.tv/LessAlex. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into the gameplay. All right, match number 1. We won the die roll. Let's see. We're going to play a Monastery Swiftspear and pass the turn. After we attack, of course. Not knowing what they're on, they play Snow Island into Spirit, so we know we're on Mono Blue Spirits. We attack in, and we play Skewer the Critics, destroying their Spirit, and then Soul-Scar Mage, go. Our opponent plays a land and passes back. We're just going to go ahead, cast Wrenn's Resolve, our Reckless Impulse here, trigger our 2 prowess creatures, and we hit Din and Light Up the Stage, and we attack. We play Battlefield Forge, Light Up the Stage, and we hit Pia and Soul-Scar Mage. They play a Rattle Chains, in step, and they Curious Obsession ×2. We're in trouble. They attack for 4 and draw 2 cards. But they missed their land drop. We're going to go ahead and play Pia, and then we're going to go ahead and play Soul-Scar Mage, which triggers our Pia and attack with our Hasty Thopter, bashing in for a ton. Take them down to 11. They have another Curious Obsession. They attack for 5. We take it. They draw 3 cards. This is so scary. And then they pass back. They got a discard. We draw Comic-Con Faces. They Geistlight Snare our Wrenn's Resolve. We then go to play Kumano Faces of a Kakkazan. triggering all of our prowess creatures. And this is what I was talking about in the deck tech, just triggering prowess so many times. It doesn't even matter if our spells resolve. They do play Spectral Sailor here, and they decide to block our Soul-Scar Mage. We take them to 1. They're at 5. Can they find a way to win? They attack for 5. They draw 3. Do they have ways to block all of our creatures? And we have a Reckless Impulse. They decide that they've had enough, though, and they're not going to be able to find a way out. And they scoop it up. On to game 2. All righty, game number 2. We're on the draw. Jegantha. This hand was terrible. We mulligan. Put the second Rending Volley back. And they play Otawara. We go ahead and play Mountain and Swiftspear, and we attack. Taking them down to 19. They Spectral Sailor and get it. Curiously Obsessed. Attack in. Draw a card. We drop to 18. We play Rending Volley on the Spectral Sailor. They Fading Hope it back to their hand. So they do lose a Curious Obsession. So that tells me that they are pretty creature light here. We attack, and then we go ahead and light up the stage, revealing Skewer and Mountain. Pretty good. Pretty good. We do need to find a white source. They do play Supreme Phantasm. We find a light up the stage. We attack with Monastery Swiftspear, assuming they won't block here, and they do not. We then Skewer the Phantasm. They decide to tap the Otawara, and then they decide they don't want to play Magic anymore. I'm assuming they probably just didn't have another creature, and they were already at 16. I mean, it could have been a game, but I don't know. They decided to scoop. So on to the next match. All righty. We decide to keep. We are on the draw. They play Steam Vents. Pass turn. We play Kumano and ping them for 1. Pass back. They then play Den of the Bugbear and pass back. So we play our Sacred Foundry and roll out Pia, which triggers, which grows our Pia. So at this point, I'm thinking maybe it's Zoomer Drakes. And then they play Haven of the Spirit Dragon, which tells me it might be an off-meta deck. They play Fable, which is the best red card in the format. Arguably the best card in the format. We draw Reckless Impulse and flip our Kumano. Wrenn's Resolve, we chain to the rocks the token and just attack with our 5 power worth of critters. Pass back, they trigger their Fable, discard a couple cards. Dragons fire our Pia. That's fine. We attack for 2. We Spectacle, light up the stage. Monastery Swiftspear, light up the stage. And we've got Mountain, Reckless Impulse. We play Soul-Scar Mage. We pass back. They flip and get a Kiki Jiki. And there's an Atushi. The Blazing Sky. We play a Pia. We play the land from exile, which triggers. Then we Skewer the Atushi. And we attack because it's a 1/1 now, thanks to the Soul-Scar Mage. So they trade with the Thopter. We're perfectly fine with that. They take some damage and go to 6. They play a second Fable. And then a Invasion, revealing Gold Span. So they kill our Pia. And they pass back. We draw Monastery Swiftspear. Pretty good draw. And then Reckless Impulse, which triggers. And the writing is on the wall for our opponent. They scoop it up onto game 2 against Red-Blue Dragons. Alrighty, game 2 against Is It Dragons. We have a pretty good hand, so we'll keep. They play Steam Vents tapped. We draw a Pia, play Den, and play Swiftspear and attack. Down to 19, our opponent goes. They play Plaza of Heroes, Invasion, targeting our Monastery Swiftspear. To the bin it goes. We then just go ahead and play Pia. Why not? And pass back. Next turn, we got Wrenn's Resolve and Reckless Impulse. Should be a pretty sweet turn, but unfortunately, they Invasion of Tarkir, targeting our Pia, which of course does kill it. We play We find Faces and Pia, two pretty good cards to find. So next turn, our plan is to play Pia and then Faces, and we'll be off to the races. They play a Sarkhan, which kind of changes our plan a little bit, but no worries. And we draw Chain of Rocks. I actually did think about chaining it, but I wanted to Rending Volley. It's such a clean answer. We play Pia, and then we play Faces, which triggers a Thopter. We attack for 4. Look at this is what I was talking about, y'all. All our prowess creatures work so well with Pia. This is just has such high synergy in this deck. It's so nice. They play another Sarkhan and a land. We Reckless Impulse to find Faces, which triggers Pia and our prowess on Monastery Swiftspear. And of course, we do have Chain to the Rocks for the Sarkhan, which triggers Monastery Swiftspear. We put it on our... You always want to put your Chain of the Rocks on your mountain, on your basic mountain, if you can. That way they can't destroy it in any way. They Anger the Gods, which is a little unlucky, right? It's a very good draw. But we still do have Kumano that is going to be flipping. And then from there, they didn't want to play with us, so we take it. All righty, match number 3, and we won the die roll. Let's see what our hand looks like. Choose Jegantha. They have a Karuga, so I can assume this is Fires. We play Spires, or I'm sorry, Needleverge Pathway into our Swiftspear. They play Zagoth Triumph. We attack and play a Pia off a very well-timed Inspiring Vantage. They play Triumph. We play Swiftspear and attack for 5. Take them to 13. Soul-Scar Mage. And now we've got quite the board. And a Skewer. So the Skewer, we could Skewer the creature. We find a Wrenn's Resolve. We go ahead and cast that, trigger all of our prowess. Let's see what we find off of this Wrenn's Resolve. Soul-Scar Mage and Skewer. Cast Soul-Scar Mage, trigger a Thopter, attack with the squad. They block Monastery Swiftspear and go to 4. What can they find? Fires into a creature? It looks like they didn't because they scooped it up on to game 2 against Karuga Fires. Alrighty, game 2, we're going to be on the draw, revealing Jegantha, and of course they reveal Karuga. They play the Save Triumph. We play Den into Faces. And we pass back. They're at 19. They play a Sacred Foundry tapped. We draw Light Up the Stage. We go ahead and play Soul-Scar Mage, which is going to give... Faces is going to give it +1/+1. So we got a 2/3 Soul-Scar Mage, and we just play Sacred Foundry tapped. They play Breeding Pool into Temporary Lockdown. Pretty good Temporary Lockdown here. That was really rough. Very good, very clean answer. Temporary Lockdown actually pretty darn insane against our deck because all of our permanents basically are, except for Jegantha, are 2 or less. So Temporary Lockdown, very insane. They bring Jegantha to hand and pass turn. We go ahead and play out Pia and Reckless Impulse. So we got Skewer and Chain to the Rocks for next turn. They play Fires into Omnath. Omnath, pretty much a nightmare for this deck. It gains life and it's a big body. Now we do have Chain to the Rocks, but still, we know they have Karuga in hand. This one's going to be rough. We trigger Pia, Chain of the Rocks, target the basic mountain. We play Faces. They lose a life. We attack for 3. Take them to 15. And then light up the stage. So we've got Reckless Impulse and Skewer the Critics. And Skewer, all the Skewers. And again, we had to do that main phase too, so that's a little bit awkward with, again, with Skewer, like I said. We do have another Reckless Impulse in Exile, though, so that's going to trigger, and hopefully we can find some good stuff. They did play Enigmatic Incarnation there and got Elishnorn, so luckily Elishnorn doesn't really mess with us other than having, 7 toughness. It doesn't do a whole lot. We play another Faces, which triggers Pia. Monastery Swiftspear from Exile, which triggers Pia. And then we just bash. leaving back our Pia and our Swiftspear. They go to 2. And then they have another temporary lockdown, and unfortunately, that just eats our lunch. Omnath returns. They trigger off that. Now they're gaining life. They play another enigmatic incarnation. I call it. They take game number 2. All right, game 3 on the play against Keruga Fires. We got Reidane, which is excellent against them. We go ahead and play our mountain and play faces. Take them to 19. They play Jetmir's Garden and pass back. We go ahead and play Battlefield Forge, Reckless Impulse, and find Kumano and Pia. Our first faces flips. We play another one, trigger a Thopter off of Pia, and attack for 3. Pretty good spot here because we got Reidane next turn. Should be pretty nice. They Fable here. I was very afraid, very, very afraid of temporary lockdown here. Thankfully, though, they did not have it. We draw a mountain, play the mountain, chain to the rocks, the goblin, and then we go ahead, lose a life, and cast Reidane, which is going to make it real hard for them to win at this point as we attack. Take them from 15 to 5. Reidane is so good against fires. Yeah, they just discard their enigmatic incarnation. And they missed a land drop too. So they're really behind here. We flip our into Etching of Karamano. Sorry, I'm terrible with this card name. And then we moved to combat, and then they decided they didn't want to play anymore. And then we take down Keruga Fires. All right, so there you have it. There is Boros Pia Aggro. This deck is a ton of fun. Is it a flavor of the month, or is it the real deal? I don't know. I think Pia is very, very powerful, especially with Wrenn's Resolve and Reckless Impulse. This could be the real deal. This could be the real deal. If you haven't yet, go read the companion article over on quietspeculation.com. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We're coming out with content like this every single week, so you don't want to miss it. This is an awesome deck list. If you're playing RCQ or, you know, just a weekly, a Pioneer weekly at your LGS, this is definitely a fun and exciting new take. Pia's legit. I think Pia's pretty legit. Now, in terms of the numbers and all that, Skewer's not great. You probably play Stomp. I really did like Reidane, though, against Fires. That's exactly why I played it, and it paid off beautifully. But let me know what you think about the deck. Again, chop it up with me in the comments. And again, you can follow me on Twitter at LessAlex over there, and I do stream over on twitch.tv/LessAlex. But yeah, this deck is pretty awesome. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Adios.